Thank you for tuning. Have with us today the one and only Steve Hamoen. Please, first of all, correct me if I mispronounce the name and introduce yourself to everybody.
It's funny because I always wonder how to pronounce it myself. So if anybody gets it wrong, I'm like, maybe they got it right and I actually have it wrong. It's a Dutch last name and it's like Moen, like the faucet, but I've always said Hamoon. So I don't know. We'll go with that.
Okay, I'm with you.
So yeah, I'm
So,
Steve Moon. I am a 10x business coach. I help companies grow their revenue by 30% in 90 days. I work with companies in a lot of different industries. I own a couple different businesses as well. Being a 10x business coach has also been able to help me grow our businesses. I have a mortgage business up in Canada. We own real estate, and I do productivity coaching for real estate agents as well with the Keller Williams model. And so, yeah, man, I'm everything about growth. Growth is my number one thing. And I coach Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
so hit him up, get training, and he's in Canada, right?
Yeah, man, Canada. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. So, disingenuous codependency.
That was interesting because we had a conversation around this, and it was just like, that's like such a fun conversation to start off talking about. Because number one, it's like a lot of letters. So it makes us sound really intelligent because the fact is, the more letters you can put in a word and actually be able to pronounce it, you got to be smart. That's why I say a lot of the people from the Philippines, their names are like 18 letters long, and they're usually really smart people. So like, do the math on that one, right? So longer the name, longer the word, smarter you are. Which obviously isn't true, but I think that the content,
It's gonna work. The
it,
exposure, the exposure and the experience, you gotta come out the other side with something.
you got to come up with it. Yeah, the biggest thing is I think a lot of times people build relationships with either entities or with
Mhm.
people, and those relationships are a codependency that maybe they shouldn't be relying on, where they maybe should be relying on their independence, and through that independence they can create relationships. And so, we were talking about this before. We were talking about either systems of government or systems of corporations or systems of relationships,
Mhm.
that being family or friends. I think each of those relationships you've got to honor the relationship in the way that you have to respect for it. But the codependency is the thing that you've got to challenge that one.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. It was interesting. I was listening to this one lady the other day talking about parenting, and she said, you need to be able to focus in parenting on becoming obsolete, like so that you are not the person that they rely on. The better the parent you are, the less they have to rely on you. And I think a lot of times what we do is we try to create this dependency because that makes us feel important. Whereas if we could create the independence in the individual, that makes them important. And I think that's something that, as a parent, as a friend, as a business partner, those are the things to think about.
Said a lot there. Make them the hero. Don't try to be the hero yourself. That's the difference between empowerment and dependency. I want to go over kind of like the general meanings, and then I got this one focus I want to tie it all together with etymology, and then let's take a more deep dive into personal relationships, business relationships, the family a little bit, and community as far as how this relates, and we'll run through it all real quick. So
Love
the
it.
kind of general definitions of disingenuous is it refers to a behavior that's not candid, sincere, straightforward, involving lack of honesty or willingness to deceive, right? Codependency is going to follow as a psychological concept describing a dysfunctional relationship where one person is excessively reliant on another for their emotional needs, often to the detriment of both individuals, right? We see that a
Hmm.
lot in business, family, community, etc. So combining the two terms suggests the type of codependency that's not authentic or sincere, and it implies the dependency between individuals characterized by deception, insincerity, and or hidden motives. Now, when I go to the etymology of disingenuous or ingenuous, right, to start, is intelligent or talented. And then the dis, of course, means opposite or lack of. And then for dependency or dependent, it's conditioned on, be because of. So the code makes it together with joint, right? So it kind of means something like the success of unintelligent or untalented togetherness, right? And then that brings me to the word I wanted to focus on, and for you to pick up there, is the word talent. All right. As talent has the meaning of inclination, disposition, will, and desire, and then balance, weight, sum of money, etc. So it kind of makes the meaning come down to a combined imbalance of understanding, which will definitely have an effect on your balance in life. It's going to add weight on your shoulders, compression, depression, and the same monetarily. So now that we got the mathematics, the vibrations, the frequency of what we're talking about here on the table, let's go ahead and tell me how that parallels to what you were just saying, because it kind of does, but it just makes it so much more simplified if we look at it like that, right?
It's funny because when you talk about, say, taxonomy of words and you look at where they come from, I think it's something that's really important. And it's actually, it's interesting because it's a very North American way to understand terminology. And I'm going to bring this back a little bit to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was talking with a friend of mine who's from Brazil, and he's very talented, both as a coach as well as a player in Jiu-Jitsu. And one of the things for him that he talks about that's very different about different languages outside of the English language is the way that they communicate isn't through a taxonomy sort of basis, but more emotive. And so the way that he communicates his jiu-jitsu is through the art of feeling and expression. Whereas the way that I understand jiu-jitsu is the sort of the John Danaher approach, which is taxonomy. It's just very simple. It's like label it, and then through that label, you can then say create an object, because you can put a couple different things together, and now you have an object. You can understand that object and then create the relations to the other items. So when we look at the idea of disingenuous codependency, we take it from a taxonomy basis. I think the way that you dissect it was brilliant, absolutely very well done. And then you have to look at it from the other side and say, what does that look like from a emotive perspective? So taking away just the words, but taking about what's behind the words, and how does that feel?
That is what a lot of people do, is operate on feelings. So it's great that you brought that up, because there is the value added potential, and there also is the latent danger, right? So let's get into this rabbit hole, starting with personal relationships, right? So one of the things that I mentioned to you almost verbatim when we was talking about the like the family dynamic was like family tasks and responsibilities. They align when we agree on the destination. Simon Sinek. When we agree on a destination, it makes it easier to overcome all obstacles.
Absolutely.
So it holds true in the household too, right? So if another destination was more valued than the current task or the current destination, then those same tasks, activities, and responsibilities would be less valued and desired over another set to arrive at another destination. So when you operate on that feelings level, right, and you're not in control of your emotions or knowledgeable. Remember, we're talking about the untalented, the unknowledgeable, the imbalance there of understanding. So if you're being misled or manipulated, now those feelings are weaponized against you. How does that work for good and bad in a personal relationship and the family dynamic?
Well, that's actually a really interesting point, and how you brought that around is actually very well crafted. When you look at the idea of relationships, and you look at the idea of feelings and how it can be weaponized. So think about it this way: if you had somebody who's been hurt at some point by doing something, and let's just say it's grandma, right? And grandma has now been hurt, and her feelings are then going to take that hurt, and she's going to want to protect the people who she loves from whatever hurt her. And then so she's going to use that feelings of protection and love to stop somebody from doing something that might be the best thing for them.
Right.
So the weaponization of those feelings are, I love you so much that I'm going to protect you from the best thing that you could possibly do. Because the biggest thing that people talk about is risk. Everybody talks about being risk adverse, and being safe and all these other things. And in safety, you can find, the slow, painful death in safety. And I'm not saying go out and climb bridges without ropes and that sort of thing. But what we start off and we teach kids from the very beginning is you be risky. You're going to learn how to crawl. Be risky. You're going to learn how to walk. Be risky. You're going to learn how to read. Because you had failure of misstating a word or whatever. So at kids, we teach them to be risky. But then there's this TSN turning point, this break that happens in that relationship of risk, to where we start telling people, oh, no, now you got to be risk averse. And that's because what happens is we're weaponizing the feelings that we have against the risk that we've taken and the loss we felt as a result.
Right. And I'm familiar with that, and I appreciate you sharing that. It's the pain that they felt in their attempts in life. They're trying to protect us from, as the younger generation, or maybe the person, even your friends that you're talking to, and you're saying, hey man, I'm leaving the job, I'm walking away from corporate America, I'm gonna start this business. Like, yo, no, before you do that, don't do that, look, right? Because they're trying in their mind to protect you from the pain. So it may be seen as hating, or it may be seen as negative, but if you look at it from that side of the coin, even though it's still damaging to you and risky, that if you follow what their advice is, you may lose out on the best thing in your life. But that's really what sometimes the position they're coming from. So you shared there are some transformative strategies for that will lead to like a genuine personal growth and improvement, right? How does self-awareness, now that we bring up that topic of, hey, if you listen to them, they might be doing you a favor, they might not be. So how does self-awareness factor into enhancing overall well-being as well?
I think a lot of
accountability, right?
Yeah, and I think, when you're giving advice or you're taking advice, you've got to understand, number one, where it's coming.
That's great. I like how
the emotional value, right? Am I trying to bring value to this person, number one, or am I just trying to fill words to make myself smart? In other words, is this for them to actually achieve a result, or is this for me to feel good? You've got to reconcile that first. Then second of all, you got to look to say, on the basis of what information am I giving this feedback? Is it because I went through something that's negative and I'm trying to protect them? And I'm trying to protect them because I want to stop them from going through the same pain that I went through? Or is it a situation that I'm trying to protect them so that they can still do what they want to do, but know the risks that are inherent in that decision so they can make it as an intelligent person? And I'm going to support their decision moving forward.
Right. So, well said. And that transitions into, let's say, business, right? Because now we went out there, you've started the career, whether it was what they were supporting you of or not, and you're out there, you're doing a thing. Now you get into business relationships, whether it's your own professional setting or you're working a job in a corporation on your career path, and you got the things like superficial team dynamics, office policies, manipulative leadership to overcome. High level overview, what are your recommendations for empowering employees to navigate office politics?
I probably would be the worst person to ask on that topic because I have zero tolerance for office politics. I think office politics to me is just an absolute waste of time. I think, you've got to have a core vision in your business that everybody aligns around. And I carry a sign, right behind me here, that is very important in all aspects. No negatively allowed here. And the reason being because I think, too many times people are trying to win it for themselves and trying to just claw their way to the top. And to me, that's just not an environment that I would ever subscribe to. I mean, if you've got an office that's all about, I was just down at Grant Cardone's office just last week in Miami. And if you want to talk about a high performing environment, it definitely is top. I mean, you walk in there, it's like literally electric with energy as you step in the front door. Everybody's fired up, but it's because they have the right culture. They start their day every day with, what are the big wins that we have when we're starting our day? In other words, what does it look like? What did we achieve? And we go through all the numbers every single day, so everybody's on target. I mean, they're not in the office there to be friends with each other. They're not in the office there to make family. I was listening to a guy from Netflix saying, like, no, your business isn't your family. Your business is your business. And it's less like a family, more like a sports team. And I think that was the nicest way of saying it. And man, Grant's sports team is on fire. You walk in that place, electric. And so that to me is the sign of a really good culture. And a good culture, I think, is having good communication. And good communication means you know exactly what it means to succeed, and you know where to go where you're having challenges, and that you can go and you can get, because everybody's on board with success. You know where you can go, so you can get that feedback loop to get back right on the wagon and get things going.
Hey, that's transformative leadership right there. And when you bring in the transparency factor, I think that really helps because you can set it up so it's like a family and really work on that, or you could just be honest and upfront and say, "Hey, look, we're gonna be like a sports team. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna accomplish this mission. We're gonna kill this goal, and we're gonna crush it. And then this is A, B, C, and D. This is why. This is gonna be the why. Like Simon Sinek. Start with the why. But as long as
Absolutely.
you're upfront and transparent. Now, what happens is with the superficial team dynamic, sometimes you get the managers that create the illusion of support, emphasizing teamwork and collaboration, and meanwhile they're exploiting the people, the employees, and behind the scenes or sometimes in front of their faces they're taking all the credit, which you hear in what's that, the 48 laws of power, art of war, be the magician, always take the credit for everything, that sort of stuff. So
Right.
here's a damaging application for it if you're not upfront with it, right?
Absolutely. I think it goes back to again that word disingenuous, and I think that's very disingenuous and very Machiavellian of them to just be looking after themselves. And I think that leads to a house of cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I think whereas if you have a system built on a model of success, and the individuals then fit into that model, and they know exactly how to measure very succinctly how to measure KPIs, the key performance indicators, and they can point to exactly what they're doing to be successful. I think what that's going to do is that's going to create a really good method of communication, which brings us right back to taxonomy. If you know the taxonomy of success, it's very easy to identify, create objects, and then create it massive growth. And I think if you can't point at that, it becomes very, very muddy waters.
Okay. So yeah, because the money waters are going to be toxic culture, low morale, high turnover, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is totally expensive and slows down productivity, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So now when we get into the community, public relations versus reality, we got officials, we got uh leadership in the community, same way we have in business, the same way we have in families. So we covered projecting an image of transparency, right? The reality behind the scenes, there might be these hidden motives, right? So agencies communicate policies and decisions, but the question is, are these decisions uh, or influenced by personal or political motives, or are they actually for the good of the people or the customer or the family members, right, as a whole? And then there's solutions presented. This will solve your problem, mafia style, sometimes, or
Yeah.
so do you see collaborative environments where citizens and institutions can work genuinely towards shared goals, or do we need to like start over and build complete replacements in society?
That's a long answered question from my perspective. I mean, I look at when we looked at, and let's look at politics for a second. In politics that talk about leadership, I think they shouldn't be in politics. When politics talks about servitude, serving the community, serving the constituency, servicing the tax base, they're in servitude to their constituents. And if they look at there being a leader, they're going in the wrong way. And I think that's where I think politics has gone a little bit sideways. I think most people are getting into politics, and again, I'm going to paint this with a really broad stroke brush, but they're going in for self-interest over the interest of the community. Now, that's not saying all of them are doing that way, but are we not seeing that as a trend across the world? That you can get into politics, and somehow on your $100,000 a year salary, you walk away with $400 million worth of net worth.
Right.
Yeah, and there's just math that just doesn't work for me on that one.
Yeah. And it's even just pointing out like we as the people have to be considerate of what we're actually accepting. Again, this is going back to the emotional control, because I just did the video a couple days ago, last week, whatever, on the overall freedom rankings that was posted. I'm in the vicinity of North Carolina. So North Carolina State fell from 13th to 24th in overall rankings. And in personal freedoms, it fell from 13th to 33rd, right? the correlation I found when I did the
We're probably
research.
in Canada at 333rd.
Nah, we're gonna get y'all up. We're gonna get y'all up, but it starts with the people, right? So this is why we have this conversation.
Yeah,
We're gonna do all of North America.
that's right.
Unify. So we're gonna be the new NAFTA. So look, right? But the correlation I found with that was that the timing of the drop paralleled with the political positioning of, hey, we're going to raise commitments on budgets on infrastructure building and education. And if you watch that video on Y97, you'll see the correlation between how those activities actually decrease personal freedoms, right? So my question to you is, what strategies do you pose to ensure transparency, accountability, and genuine communications between, let's just say, the higher ups, whether that's family, business, or community, and the Gen Pop?
When you look at family and transparency in family is very easy. I heard somebody say this once. They said in their personal family, you can be a communist leader, almost a dictator, when you run your family, because you have such a small pool of the people that you are going to affect, and you're going to have the best interests of the people around you because it's such a small pool. So your family operates like a communist regime, but that communist regime needs to interface with other communist regimes, right? Other families. And so to do that, you need a marketplace of enterprise. And that marketplace of enterprise is the free market that we deal with in North America. And so I think when we look at the the way that goes, it's understanding the rules of the game. Now, most people do not play, and when you get to the higher levels, do not play by the rules of the game that you and I play by.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's having an understanding of the transparency. I don't think the general populace, number one, would be able to have access to what the real rules of the game are. Number two, would be able to comprehend why they're structured that way. And number three, be able to contribute on how to make them better. And I think it's because the general populace has so much other things to worry about, that to understand the game that how it's being played at that level, you have to play the game at that level. I think, when we look at sports teams and you say the football players, every football player who's on that field playing that game right there, you and I out sitting in the stands, even if we're in the best seats of the house, we're the closest to the field, we're still not on the field. We're still a spectator. And I think we have to understand our role as to when we are a spectator and when we are a contributor. And I think that when you get to the point that you can be a contributor into that game, I think that's when you have to understand the rules of the game.
Well played. And that's really why Y97, for example, is based on etymology, is really what got this channel started. Because once we realize that the words we use every day mean something totally different, that'll be one step in the direction of realizing what's being said that we don't understand generally, because we're too busy, like you said, being programmed in a different tier level.
Yeah.
So we have beliefs instead of knowledge of. And then once we get that knowledge and wisdom, the distrust in institutions may become more prevalent. Decreased civic engagement may become more apparent, because people are already becoming more skeptical of official statements and actions. Even because they don't know the words, they're starting to get more in tune with their feelings, and they feel like something is wrong. So now once we match that buzziness about the feeling side with here's the realization of the word factor, now they can put it together and make strategic decisions for the family, for the business, for the community, because the perceive that once they perceive that their dependence on these entities, they'll become disengaged and lose faith in the process. So how do you guide your clients in setting and achieving audacious goals while maintaining strong ethical foundation?
I think that's starting with your why. I think going from Simon Sinek, I'm a firm believer in that, is that everything you do needs to lead to that purposeful movement. And if something that you're doing is not doesn't reconcile with your core values, you shouldn't be doing it. That is a fundamental thing. And unless your core values are wrong, and wrong is arbitrary, but unless your core values are wrong, I could see that could be something. You might think that money doesn't buy happiness, and that's maybe one of your core values. But then all of a sudden you realize that no, indeed, actually money can buy happiness, because if I want to make massive impact, well, I need massive, you know, stockpiles to be able to make that massive impact. I mean, if we could broadcast this right now on every news channel around the world, it could probably have a more massive impact. Well, how do you do that? Well, you have to do that with actual capital, right? And so that's one of those things that I think, you know, if you want to have a massive impact in the world, I love when Grant says this. He says, "Success is my duty, my responsibility, and my obligation." And I think if you can really craft what your big why is, and you know what the parameters are for you to operate in, that's comfortable for you, there should be nothing that should stop you from doing to get there, other than your own demise.
Very good point. And I actually think that you reinforced the fact that money can't buy happiness, because happiness is actually from the root word happen, and that means luck, right? So when you go to a casino, yeah, you could have a bunch of money and put on the table and maybe play the slot 1,000 times and get more lucky as single, but it doesn't buy the increased luck for each particular roll of the dice or each particular pull of the slot machine itself, right? What it does do is it allows you, like you said, to craft our joy, which is the state. So once we know what we want, we need to build the state of joy. And that's where the money can do with that. Happiness is just luck. It's just roll of the dice, right? So I think you said the truth in there. I just wanted to clarify that the happiness is true because it's luck. What you can do with the money or the funding, even though there's no money in circulation, we're dealing with currency, fiat currency, but you can actually craft and build your joy, that environment that creates the joy in your personal sanctuary, your home, your business, your way you relate with clients, and the community itself once we get there, which is why these conversations are so important in the underpinning, because this is going to be what gets us on that path. So we spoke about the imbalance, right? The imbalance of the combined imbalance of understanding that's going to cost you so much. So it could lead to trust issues, emotional manipulation, unhealthy dependence, and difficulty in communication, which has its own hindrances across the board as well. Closing remarks?
You know, one of the things is, man, you are one deep fellow, my brother. You are one deep fellow. And I love chatting with you. I have to say, this has been an absolute pleasure to be on your show.
I appreciate you taking the time to come and dedicate the experience to the community and all that you've done. I went to one of your what was it, a seminar you want to call
Yeah, it was
it?
an AI event. Yeah.
Yeah, so well put together. I recommend anybody come to his LinkedIn channel. Let me get your information up here. Your LinkedIn page has a lot of those links for you, so they can come and visit and let's just look at what you're doing for the community. That was even a free offering that you did for the community, and somebody, if not everybody, could walk away from there with $1 million worth of value. So it's people like you that I'm looking for to partner with, so that we can make these changes in the community, because all it takes is for us to talk and build something together, because we're shifting towards transformative leadership.
I think the big thing that I can pull it of, especially just speaking on your show, is that thought, you know, is the first inception point of words. And then words are the next inception point of action. And action is what's going to create, you know, the legacy that we're looking for. Because to bring it all together around happiness, I'm 100% with you. I think happiness is fleeting. You know, I love the idea of saying that I'd rather be productive than happy, because productive produces long-term joy, where happiness is like that moment, that fractional second that's going to disappear in a moment's notice and be replaced by something else. And I think productive, which is exactly what your show is, which is exactly your mode of direction, I think is wonderful to see. I think you're going to make a huge impact in the world.
Thank you for walking that journey with me, big guy. All right, I know we had 30 minutes. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, man.
Say bye to the people.
Hey guys, everybody, thank you for joining the show. Checking them on the next one. It's a wonderful experience, and man, do you bring out the best content out of people. Awesome job.
Thank you. Pasha Paroh, Steve Hamoen. Go check him out. Google, LinkedIn, Alignable, everywhere. He's worldwide. He's in Canada, but he'll be right there on your computer if you need him. Let's go.
Let's
10x.
go. 10x.
Pasha
Don't.
Paroh. Enjoy. Thank you for tuning.